Hello, and thanks for joining us out in the beautiful hills of Bologna, or about an hour outside of Sant'Agata Bolognese. With me, I have the Lamborghini LM002. It's probably one of the lesser-known Lamborghinis, and something that was, let's say, a complete departure from the norm for Lamborghini. And the idea for this vehicle first came about in 1981. Believe it was Giulio Alfieri who proposed the concept for a military vehicle. The original was dubbed the LM001. And the original concept called for a rear-mounted V8 engine. But the LM002, which went on to be produced in limited numbers, it didn't really see a whole lot of military application. But it's these days a very sought-after collector's car. I think this is probably worth about €500,000 or so. And this particular car is a one-off. It's painted in what's called special green, even though it looks more blue, sort of a turquoisey color for a collector in Japan. So the LM002, as it was conceived at the time, had a front-engine V12. So it was essentially the same engine as a Countach, but spun 180 degrees around, mounted at the front with a 5-speed ZF gearbox. This particular car has the final version of the V12, which is the 5.2 liter. It's detuned to 332 horsepower at 6,000 RPM. I think the final Countach had about 455, because obviously this has a different job description. So it's very much a sort of hardcore off-roader, and it's undoubtedly the first super SUV, because nothing else at the time was anywhere near as powerful and rapid as this. Typically, the all-terrainers of the day would do 100 k's an hour, and that was it. This thing could do 200. It would just cruise all day at 200. But it was very much a hardcore off-roader. It apparently could tackle inclines of 120 degrees. So you had low-range gearing, locking differentials, full-time four-wheel drive, and then these bespoke Pirelli Scorpion tires, which Pirelli developed specifically for this car. And in fact, the learning that Pirelli gained from developing these tires led the way to sort of a continued ongoing development of off-road tires by Pirelli. And in fact, even the Urus of today is offered with Pirelli Scorpion tires. Not these ones, obviously, but something that, let's say, a modern-day version of this. So the design language, as you can see, Lamborghinis are typically low and sleek, and this is anything but it. In the words of the early development team, it was sort of like a UFO. And that's really, especially sitting out here in these sort of tranquil hills, this thing looks like, something that's landed from outer space. The bodywork is a mixture of aluminium and fiberglass, steel tubular frame chassis, but it's a heavy beast. It's 2,700 kilos. Which I think is pretty much on par with the Toyota Land Cruiser. And these are actually very sought after now, and I think this particular car is worth about €500,000, I'm told. And then you can see Italian cars of the day, because especially the specialist cars, which were built in such small volumes, had to use off-the-shelf parts. So these tail lights are, I think, of an Alfa Romeo Alfetta, and all the other indicator repeaters and reflectors, etc. They're also, and the headlights, all off-the-shelf parts. It didn't really go on to win any military contracts, but I think a few hundred were made, which the few that exist now are in the hands of collectors, worth a lot of money. So let's jump in and go for a spin, see how it goes. So, this, I have to say, is something rather unusual, driving the Lamborghini LM002. It's not something I ever imagined I'd be doing, so this is a nice privilege out here in these hills to be piloting this big hulk of a thing. And yeah, I have to say it presents its own challenges. The steering is actually not that heavy. It's got power steering, so unlike let's say the Miura and the Countach, you don't have to use so much elbow grease to get the thing turned. But probably one of the biggest challenge is the fact that you have these two huge bonnet bulges, which completely obscure visibility to the sort of to the offside there. So you kind of have to guesstimate where you are relative to the edge of the road. But other than that, it's actually sort of pretty comfortable to drive. I feel like I'm in a big sofa, really. It's pretty comfortable. The ride is good, and nothing really that challenging. Although we're getting, me and Jonathan, our cameraman, we're getting high on the petrol fumes that are engulfing this car. The V12, as you can probably tell, is not deafening as it was in the Countach and the Miura. It just sort of sails along, sort of serenely wafts along. Pretty soft ride. It just sort of floats across all the different bumps. What else? You have this H-pattern 5-speed ZF gearbox. It's a dogleg first gear. Actually much slicker than I thought it would be. I thought it would be a bit clunky, but it's actually, yeah, pretty good. So, and you have a good amount of torque, so you can get up this hill, tight hairpin without having to shift down. Yeah, we won't get the chance to go off-road today because that would have been a hoot, but we don't have that much time, and also we don't want to get stuck anywhere. So tarmac it is. So yeah, I can kind of see the appeal of these cars. It's something very unique. Where else do you get a hardcore off-roader with a V12 and a manual gearbox? That's really something out of the ordinary. So let's just sit back and enjoy some of the sights and the sounds of driving the LM002 through these hills.